with the government center meeting room policy. Since we have some people here for that item, I'd like to move that up to item 5, and 5 and subsequent items moved down.
That would be all right with my motion to move that?
Okay, we got a motion with that movement
I'll second.
and a second.
Oops.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Members of the public have a 15-minute block of time to comment on today's agenda items. They may be present in person or call in to make such comments. To comment by telephone, please call 715-538-1894. Comment period may be extended or curtailed at the discretion of the committee or board chair, and after advisement by the committee or board. Government Center meeting room policy. It has, as we've talked before, we have, I think, decided on not allowing the building to be used when there's nobody at the security checkpoint. And believe it or not, that policy is a point of contention. And I think we based our decision, I think, mainly on availability of personnel and money to pay somebody to sit at the security checkpoint. And please correct me if I'm wrong on that, people. But it seems to me that if the county is willing to spend $45+ million on the building, maybe we should pony up for somebody to man the security checkpoint so that employees of the county and committees and the public can use the facility. Personally, I don't think it's a good idea to withdraw the manned security checkpoint for people to use the facility, but that is an option, not an option I would be getting behind. So I know there are people here who wanted to comment on this topic today, so
You know?
yeah, I want you to go.
Okay, well, and I've talked to Dan about this a little bit, and I know Andrea's sitting here, and we both really are here in relationship to the same, type thing, but the public owns this building. For the public to not be able to hold a meeting here, a community organization meeting, i.e. 4-H in this case, we were forced to meet at Whitehall School because we couldn't get a room here. Like, what did we build all these beautiful spaces for if we can't let the public use them? And maybe there's something that could be incorporated into the remodel, so you can set hours in a room that you can access from the outside or something moving forward. But it is an issue to me that we've spent all the public's money like this and they can't even use them for a community organizational type meeting. So I have issues with that. I don't think it's right. So that's my 2 cents.
Andrea?
I mean, the same thing as Kellen. I look at it mainly from the 4-H standpoint, but of course, there's other community organizations that would use it in the same way. I don't like having to find a facility that is like a paying business. Since 4-H is like a nonprofit, it's community-based. I don't like having to go to like a private business and say, hey, can I use your meeting room? Because I'm also looking at ADA compliance. So if I have someone show up to my meeting who needs an elevator access or something like that, I can't guarantee that Outright Affair would have that because everyone's like, well, just go to Outright Affair. Well, and also I'm doing a meeting for a youth organization. I don't like mixing alcohol and youth organization. So I'm just hoping that this can come back, that we are able to use the building again after hours, because that has always been what we did up until COVID, and of course, up until the remodel, where we were able to just badge in, or, well, not even badge in, but just go in through the back door and then go down to the Trempealeau room, and that was never really that much of an issue. I look at it from 4-H, I always know who's coming to my meetings, and for the most part, all of them are background checked. So, I'm not, like, yes, I might have some people who aren't, but then I would take responsibility for them as, with them being in the building, because I work here. I'm able to come in after hours. So I'm frustrated because I'm not able to then have my meetings at a consistent space, and I'm constantly having to find a different space or a location depending on where or how or when people are able to meet. So I would just love to be able to use this building and maybe connect people a little bit more to it, and maybe bring up the presence of it being a little more positive. So, I don't know.
Well said.
Thank you.
May I address the chair?
Yes, please.
Why does security have to be present after hours for a meeting? That seems like mission creep. The reason we were screened during the day was the immediate threat of the hothead going into the courts. We're preventing that with all-day screening. We already have employees that can gain access to the building. The nefarious, forward-thinking, cold-blooded plotter can easily figure a way to do damage to personnel and building. So why do we have to have security here after hours? We could just notify facilities to make sure the door access is allowed, and there's dispatch watching on cameras in case somebody were running amok in the hallways. But the reality is, it's just like any other building. And if somebody wants to do damage to this organization, they're gonna find a way if they're not a hothead. So it feels like mission creep that we're having security after hours.
Mission creep? Oh, I never heard that term before. Jeremy?
And just from an access and security standpoint for facilities, if you were to go after hours, the easiest room would be this one. Just because I can grant access to the front door, unlock the security door, and then this door. People would be limited to only this waiting area outside of this room on the second floor, and then just the main lobby. They couldn't get down to the court hallway. They wouldn't be able to access the old building from here. All that requires badge access. If you were looking at the Trempealeau room like in the past, then I've got to unlock every single door all the way through the building for them to do that, or give someone access to do that. So if you do choose it, it would be this room. The Badger room downstairs is an option, but that one from the main lobby doesn't have a badge reader. So I'd have to give someone access to the sheriff's public hallway and then into the other room. So I'm already looking at adding a badge reader to the Badger rooms from the lobby, but that would be a budget thing for next year, so.
Depending on the meeting, the waiting area itself is more than adequate for some meetings, right next door.
Yeah, that's a big giant space that has tables in it as
Yeah.
well. So, and then if it's an after-hours meeting, you're not really encroaching on anybody else if you're using that public space as well. So just the facilities, 2 cents on which rooms would be available and the most secure.
Thank you.
Let me ask you a question before you move away. Oftentimes, the groups that have met off hours, I shouldn't say oftentimes, I think 4-H has from time to time, they've had food and drink. This is not the place to have food and drink, because we had that problem in the boardroom downstairs. So I guess.
If I get where you're going, and yes, I would prefer, even board member, if we bring anything in, it's just water. But I can ask that to a point, but we've already had food spilled on half of these carpets, and most of them were from employees already. But yes, some of them have food, they have drinks, they have, like when we brought the Boy Scouts in here, there was Kool-Aid and snacks and stuff. But 4-H, maybe they have little cookies or maybe nothing. But yes, it would be my preference that if we changed that, it would just be water that would be located in the rooms like this, just for ease of cleaning. But if I know there's also something going on the night before, we usually put in extra garbage cans and spray bottles and rags for people to kind of clean up after themselves.
Now, being that we are talking about remodeling the old section, is there any reasonably priced methodology of making that Trempealeau room accessible? I guess the reason I'm saying that is that it is a very nice multi-purpose room, a lot of space. You've got restrooms handy there. It's really a decent space. And that, to me, that would be a good place. But you're saying that there is no easy way of accessing that.
Not as of right now, just because of either I unlock every single door so people can go through
Right.
the entire facility to get there, or we have to disarm some of the fire alarms that are on some of the perimeter doors and then allow people to come in where they used to, on like door number 2 here in the back and stuff like that. Right now, those are not run through, they're just run through a key. They're not on a security program where I can't just disable the alarms without physically keying them off. So that means we'd have to either have facilities come in at some point. If the meeting's on a Saturday afternoon, someone from facilities would have to come in and disarm that building, that portion of the building, to let someone in.
But you could close off much of the rest of that building.
For the Trempealeau room access?
Right.
Yes, so it would be just like it was in the past. If we let them in the back door, they could get to the Trempealeau room, they could get to the landing outside of registered deeds, and they can get to the landing where the jail lobby used to be. That's as far as they're gonna go. But again, the access would have to be from what is the fire door in our little quad area now. So that's without unlocking everything else. So the size of that room, like Kellen had said here, this area out here is bigger than the Trempealeau room is. And there's bathrooms right here, and bathrooms on the first floor, and an elevator to get you where you need to go. So unless they were looking for super privacy on a weekend, that room you'd have doors that would close, but here you would still be alone as well. So this, again, would be the easier place to go, whether it would be this room or the lobby, sitting right outside.
So
of
the
this
other
room.
one would require some minor/major changes?
It would either require staffing changes or, yes, some security changes that would have to be addressed during the remodel.
Okay. So that is an
Changing
option.
like adding badge access to certain areas, the stuff I could turn the readers off and turn the alarms off as required. But anything in the old building is gonna be more complicated, considering this is the main, even the old boardroom, I'd still have to give access, then they would have the ability to wander around through the land management area up to the lobby on the second floor for right outside of health, and then the entire basement of the TV studio. Again, all the other doors are locked, but it just opens up more area for people to get through.
Thanks, Jeremy. Discussion. I guess in spite of what might have come out of my mouth in meetings past, I am squarely behind the use of this building by the public. We had a policy in place prior to this construction regarding use by private entities or for-profit groups that I would assume would remain in place, and groups like Boy Scouts, 4-H, et cetera, I think need to be, this facility needs to be made available for those groups. Dick?
Mr. Chair, after hearing from Jeremy, especially that we're locking them down to just this area, it changes my way of thinking. If we can just have them come in here, and like you said before, the public paid for this place. I would be more than in favor of changing.
Good? Anybody else?
Is it fair to understand, my understanding is that the rest of the building, with the exception of the entryway and this space, could be locked down? This room could be closed?
Again, so if someone were to use, if they wanted this room on a Saturday afternoon, I could have the front doors scheduled to be unlocked from 1 PM to 2 PM. The secure entrance after you walk through the x-ray machine, unlocked for the same amount of time, and this room unlocked for that same amount of time. They would not be able to get down the court hallway because the double set of doors are locked and you need a badge to open them up. The same with the double set of doors on the second floor that gain access to the old building, and the first floor access to the old building, and the public hallway for the sheriff's department are all locked after hours, so no one can get in to any of those spaces. If you're only giving them access to the lobby sitting outside of here, the same would go. The front door would be unlocked, the security checkpoint would be unlocked, but this door would stay locked. Without a badge, they wouldn't be able to gain access to that. If they're a county employee, their badge would still, as it sits right now, let them into this, to the building here. It would let them in the front door and the security bypass, but your badge doesn't open this door. So they wouldn't have access to this room unless it was granted through
Okay.
through my department.
From the standpoint of the security, I think we all understand that. From your standpoint, in terms of managing the space, maintaining cleanliness, whatever, what, you think this is would be the best location for this?
Whether it's this room or that area out there. And as long as I know something's going on that weekend, like I said, we supply extra garbage cans and we put out cleaners and stuff if they're gonna be required.
Okay.
Most of the staff, if people that are here anyway, there's usually a staff member or a board member or somebody that's in a lot of these groups to begin with anyway, so if something catastrophic happens, they get a hold of me anyway.
Thank you.
Just listening to the conversation and what Jeremy has mentioned before is a very valid point, like the Trempealeau room. If you guys want to give them access to the Trempealeau room and you want it to come through a different door, I think that would be direction to tell us, and we would revise those bid documents from a security perspective. That would give you that other space. Otherwise, your decision today may just be limited to this. But if when we bid those documents out, you wanted something that would just isolate them to that portion, because right now that's a challenge, right?
Yes.
Is that if you give direction that you want that Trempealeau room to be an option where they don't have to go through the entire building, we could have the engineers look at egress code and stipulations in regards to what you do with card readers to maybe have that one opportunity and this be another opportunity. So just something to consider, that those documents could be tweaked before we finalize the numbers.
Thanks for that.
Wouldn't there be an elevator problem there?
No, if you're
Because
coming in the
80
back door to get down to the Trempealeau room, you've got the elevator that's right there next to the old sheriff's department door. You're getting into that landing.
Oh, so you'd be lighting them through the sheriff's department?
I would be letting them, they'd have to come in through the quad, like where everyone used to exit to the old parking lot out here in the back. That door would have to be disarmed,
I see.
and then that
I was
reader.
thinking the one on the end.
No, not on the end of the hallway. They'd have to be coming through the quad area.
Okay.
But again, that would require some revisions later on down the line to change how the access to that area works, so.
Mr. Chair, hearing that information, I think we're talking another 2 years before that could possibly happen, if we're gonna use the Trempealeau room. So saying that, I think I'm gonna make a motion that court council work on changing the policy to have use this room as soon as we can get the policy changed.
Doc, you're saying this room or that room?
For the use of this area here.
This and the next door.
Is corp counsel or the county administrator on the policy development?
Yeah, whoever, yeah, somebody with Paul.
I'll second that motion.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
May I add one thing?
Sure.
As a friendly, I would consider this a friendly amendment, but I'm not going to amend it. I ask if you agree, I guess, that we, as we proceed with the work on the old section,
Right.
that we include a request for at least the pricing of that need for security for that section as something that can be struck out if we deem it more than what we want to spend. Is that a possibility? Sure. Yeah. Yeah, would that be satisfactory?
Yes, it would. Very
Can
much
we
in
Have
favor.
that inclusion?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
Any other discussion on the motion on the floor? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Samuel's Group. Kurt. Oh,
No, we never did that.
thank you for that. Minutes from the previous meeting have been distributed. I'll entertain a motion to accept those minutes as printed and distributed.
Motion.
Second.
Got a motion and a second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carried. Now Samuel's Group. Kurt.
I don't have a lot to update you with. Last month, we talked about putting that rebid on pause until the new board members are in place. And also, we're going to be meeting with Becky later this month to talk about evaluation of potential changes if needed, as well as funding that she's pursuing. So we haven't proceeded with any of that renovation. We will add this consideration in regards to amendments that are there. I know that my team, Ted and Kurt, are working with Jeremy on some loose ends and issues that come up, and we'll continue to address them as need be as they come up through an occupancy. So that's all I really have for an update. I do want to speak on the CB topic too when we get to that. So,
I think that's next.
so what I told you last month was wrong. I told you that they were switched to meet the DOC. They were actually controlled so that all of them could be dimmed. So they do not have individual control of any of those cells. They have dimming control on all of the cells. So I know Jeremy's been working on some discussion with the electrical contractors that they can do them individually. So the way that system works is that the lighting control is allowed to be able to control multiple relays for each one of those rooms, but those relays are not in place. So in order to put those relays in place is what the cost would be for individual rooms. So I apologize for that. That was the information that was shared with me, and it was not accurate. So
Thanks for that. And I have a renovations update. Has that been covered, basically?
yeah, that was about it. You know, the timing of that will depend on when you guys decide if you want to make any adjustments or not. And then obviously, once your new committee would be in place, I think we would give them an update on documents, you know, hopeful that most of you will still be here, so there's some synergy there, but at least that point, we would be able to talk about when we would get that out for bid, so.
Thank you. IT update. Mr. Robertson.
So, let's see. We've completed upgrading the Wi-Fi in the old courthouse building. So now throughout the facility, we have the same Wi-Fi access. The upgraded equipment in here was now, we rolled those to the old. We were going to wait for the renovation, but it became obvious we had a problem with two different systems. So we're all on one system now on the Wi-Fi. Staff got that done last week. The big news, of course, is the print services contract switched over. We were with E.O. Johnson. We are now with Bauernfeind Business Technology, or we call them BBT, out of Marshfield. We deployed 25 new devices, 17 of which are identical copiers, which is an improvement over our last one. One big printer for UW, which is in the same line as the other 17. 5 high-speed, high-capacity black and white printers, and 2 high-speed, high-capacity color printers for desktops in areas where they had a high enough usage rate that it made sense to make sure those were under services contract. We still have about 40 devices that are sprinkled around the buildings and out at Highway that are owned by the county that are no longer going to be under a services contract. So I'll be paying for toner out of those as we go. We're going to try it this way because it felt silly to be keeping printers that don't even print 200 pages a month under a service contract. You're taking it. We are going to still be monitoring those other 40-plus devices and making sure that we don't have sudden change in printing. The new services agreement that we negotiated includes a pricing structure that is simple to understand and easy to charge back, and we can also start to look at it, since we'll be paying for what we actually use, any changes to how we operate as a business, we'll see the savings right away when we're printing less. So we're really happy to have gotten that done, and the project itself went off really well. Everybody in the organization was very patient and helpful throughout that day. BBT was really good to work with, so we're pretty happy with how that all went. We've got network rollout is continuing in the old building to match the new building for all our switches. We're finalizing Justice Center work in courts. We still have monitors to roll out for the viewing of the proceedings in the courtroom in the judge suite area. We have to roll out the video viewing stations for the bailiffs yet. We have some things in jail we're continuing to work on. We'll be meeting with the sheriff's office to go over details on what remains outstanding in the way of technology in their spaces and what needs to, maybe we can no longer pursue. We want to take a look at where we're at, because I'm out of money, so we have to figure out a way to move forward without spending anything. We still have to document systems in the new building. That's always the last thing that we do in IT, and it's kind of an important step. So we'll be taking that under. We're also going to need to meet with the sheriff's office because we have a net motion system upgrade, which impacts not just the county, but all the agencies that connect into our system in the county. So every police department is also as part of that. The timing of the dispatch move is what's going to impact that particular project as to how quickly we move forward, because we'd like to take a look at reviewing the memorandums of understanding we have with each of these agencies to make sure that we're following the best security processes and that my staff have the capability to maintain what we're doing. We've had mission creep on those MOUs where what they agreed to when the sheriff's department so magnanimously gave them this access to this software for free, they're asking for more than what was originally in those MOUs, so we need to revisit that. We'll be working with the sheriff's office on that. We have to update the ProPhoenix system. We're going to be virtualizing that entire system and upgrading each server. The servers they run on are no longer supported. That timing of that also related to the move of dispatch, and of course the dispatch migration itself. I've heard some bad news, but it's just rumor that about 40 other counties are trying to make this move at the same time, and so where we are in line, Brett can probably speak to it, but we don't know if June or July is going to be when they show up. I'm nervous that we might get pushed back into fall or maybe, God forbid, next year. So that could present some problems for the organization. So hopefully AT&T is really on top of it all, and we'll be getting a June or a July migration there. And then lastly, we have a really large project that we're going to have. It's going to take a lot of staff time where we have to figure out how to get rid of the mountains of data that is over 10 years old in the organization that we perhaps should be purging. We have to clean up the data because we have file names that are so long that when we do tests of restoring our backups, they fail. So we have to get that under control, which requires a lot of involvement, meeting with each department, saying, why are you keeping these documents? Why are you having 17 folder levels to get down to that document? And we're going to have to help them move through and clean up their own stuff. And then we'll be migrating and virtualizing those servers as well in the coming months. Almost catching up. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. Jeremy?
Before I get too deep in I just need some clarification on the meeting room that you guys decided earlier. If you're not wanting security for any of the stuff on the weekends, 4-H, stuff like that, that are nights on the weekends, are we going to continue to provide security for any after-hours meetings? County board meeting, health department, anything like that, because that'll change how I do things as well as the sheriff's department.
Discussion, people? I have a tendency to agree with the statement Mr. Robertson made. We could have security at that checkpoint 24/7, and that would not be a guarantee that we could prevent any risk to public safety from entering the building. With that being said, do we want to change the policy that we currently have in regards to those scheduled meetings and the after-hours manning of security checkpoint?
I think we should continue with a security for official board meetings and operations. There's a likelihood of more interest in terms of the public coming into those things. And there was an instance while I was not on the board that caused a lot of interest, that there should be some kind of security here to just make sure that something doesn't slip through. I think failing to do that, we may as well do away with security in general on a daily basis. Why would we limit it to just the 8 to 5 time frame? We only have, do we have just 2 committees that normally meet in the evening? Well, besides the board. We have health, human services meets a little later on into the afternoon. I don't know if there are any other committee meetings or not. Does anybody know?
No, human services usually starts at 4, so they actually start before the
We're out.
building closes.
Yeah,
Health
we're-
department's usually at 6, and then the county board, it varies, because sometimes you guys do special meetings before that start at 6, some are at 7, but they usually they're obviously on the same night. But as of right now, there's few and far between the ones that are actually in the evening.
And currently, that manpower is a budgeted issue, right, Sheriff?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
For the board meetings, Brett, and for the other meetings, right? Yes.
I think for official meetings of county board members and representatives, I think it's appropriate to continue that as we have been.
So we can leave that in place in response to your question.
I just need a clarification, and I'm sure the sheriff did too, just for staffing questions, so. The next one is the CB 57. Pretty much we could just strike that from any agendas going forward. I met with the electricians, we found a more cost-effective solution, and I've discussed some things with Brett, and we'll be looking at it a different way from what they have there, so that one won't need to be looked at again. Other than that, for maintenance department updates, it's been a month. We have some small issues here and there that are just learning curves still. We have still some plumbing issues that are happening in the new facility, in the new jail from time to time. Some of the pipes coming apart, some of the sewage lines grabbing more than they're intended to, because there's some security pins in there to stop bigger items from going down the toilet, but it's also grabbing more and plugging the toilets a little more often than it should. So we're dealing with that and trying to find a solution which coincides with some of the pipes coming apart and pressure a little too high, stuff like that. So we're dealing with that. The old building in the old jail, we've pretty much got most everything out of there, between stuff that we were getting rid of, the stuff the sheriff's department sold on auction. And then we're just getting ready to clean that out. I've reached out to a handful of counties that have similar equipment to what we have in the old facility to see if anyone was interested in purchasing any of the old motors, the gates, anything like that. I haven't had too much interest, because when we did have all those gates and doors redone 4 or 5 years ago, they were all kind of made specific to the doors that they were installed in. So it's not like it's a pull it out from here and it's going to work somewhere else. But I'm still hopeful that we'll find somebody that might want some of it. Other than that, the intentions going forward is to just give different cell blocks to different departments. UW Extension might get one to store some of their extra stuff that's not in the basement. et cetera, stuff like that. So just because the cost of remodeling that jail was not included in any of the remodel stuff going forward, because the cost was a little high to do anything in there. So it'll just be that going forward. Waiting for hopefully later this, between now and the next meeting, a lot of the landscaping outside that didn't get finished last year should start happening again this year. The rest of the grass that needs to come in, the riprap that's gonna go into the retaining pond, stuff like that. I don't have a whole heck of a lot else. Like I said, we've been running around, staying busy, and as you can hear, Robbie's down there cleaning, so unless you have any specific questions for me, I had no major concerns over the past few weeks.
Anybody? Hearing none. Thanks, Jeremy.
Yep.
Thanks.
Paul, you want to give us an update on the funding for the renovation? Yes, please.
It's kind of fast. Actually, the exec finance committee last week put together a resolution to designate. The exec finance committee last week met and designated in a resolution money to be for the renovation. And it should have been on your, well, not everybody brought their laptops, but it was, this resolution will not go to county board until May. So it'll be after the new board is sat and has time to, even though we only have a few new members, they'll at least have a chance to see what it is. But it's about 3.5 million with potential of about 3.5 with potential of about 500,000 more when we know what our reimbursement is from ODIP and our contingency from the construction project.
Okay.
That's it.
What's the contingency right now?
452.
Oh, it went up. That'd be closer to $600,000 then. That could be added. And I haven't heard anything on ODIP either yet, so.
Thank you, Paul. Well, that's that. Date and a time for the next meeting. And don't look at me.
I think we can,
Second Monday.
Mr. Chair, I think we can tentatively set it for the same time and place next month, though when we organize the new board, they may choose to vary that somewhat, perhaps.
Or you just throw a date out there so at least they have something to go off.
Yeah, that would be the 13th, the second Monday of the month.
Yeah.
Same time, 8:30,
Same place, huh?
same place.
Okay.
And if there's nothing else,
Yes, I just want to say thank
Just
you.
close.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Dan,
welcome.
for
You're welcome.
leading us the last 2 years and appreciate everything you've done. Thank you. Dan Schreiber.
You're welcome. I'll adjourn the meeting at 10 minutes
Some of the
after 9.
construction people I talked to.